All right. So should we start?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to start by saying Jocelyn sent us a whole lot of homework.
Sorry.
And I told her, I said, I don't know if I can get through it. No, we did. I did. But I think the plan for tonight is just to kind of review what we, how the night went with the town meeting a little bit, and then get right into, I think, a good worksheet that she's going to have us go through to help us stay focused on getting to the next part of this, which is some possible goals.
Yep.
Okay, so there we go.
Yeah,
So
I mean, the agenda item about a debrief is just, if there's anything the committee wants to talk about how the town informational forum went. Anything you took away from it that, will inform the plan, or if you don't want to talk about it, we can go on to the next thing on the agenda. I think it went pretty well. I think you got good attendance. I think there were good questions, and
yeah, I thought as one of the presenters, I thought it was really nice to be able to get through it and have feel like people were listening. And the nice thing about Zoom is that you do have control over the audience, and in this kind of case, I think it's helpful. And I liked the chat function, and then being able to read the questions that were submitted prior. So we did get to everything, which I thought was good. So that was from my end, though. So you guys were watching.
Did you get any feedback afterwards from people well, that's good. I mean, that means people express themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people felt, from what I could see and hear, that felt listened to. And it's, anything we're hearing outside, it's the same. Both sides, people are uncertain. Really, if anything, it reinforces the survey results. And what Jocelyn said was correct, that, we're going to continue probably with those same numbers. Even if we had everybody in town, it would be still pretty close to what we got, which I find interesting.
I thought it went well. I know one of the things that people expressed interest in was learning more about the housing trust. We talked about putting some information on the website. I haven't looked at the site. Has any of that been done yet?
No, I think the recording was available, but in terms of a housing trust, we don't really have anything. The town has nothing to, that it's organized to submit, to the public to look at. So in terms of that.
Well, just to tell them what it is, to repeat that it's a 501c3, and we have a tax deduction, tax exemption.
Yep. I think that what we can probably do is, that's something we have to come up with, and what that document would be. And that would probably come out of these conversations that we're going to have next. Jocelyn, what do you think about that?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I think that would be a good thing to come out, like a fact sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just don't have that. The Board of Selectmen doesn't have that on their own, because it really, you have to be careful. It doesn't really come from the Board of Selectmen. It needs to be from this committee, which is a broader group.
Right.
All right. So if it's okay with you guys, let's move on to the real fun stuff. I put together a document that I'm hoping you guys all can see, to help us kind of work through this next step in the process, which is to agree on or discuss kind of I guess I have 4 questions here that I did send to you in your homework if you had a chance to look at it. But, the first question hopefully we can talk about is, are these these goals that we talked about at that public, at the town informational forum about the housing plan, are these the ones we want to focus on? And then we'll talk about strategies, and I think what we'll try to do tonight is just not get in depth in any specific strategy, but really just talk about, is this strategy worth considering and talking more about at the next meeting, so that we can have a list of basically ideas that you're all interested in hearing more about and talking more about, but not necessarily talking tonight in depth about any specific strategy. So the first strategies we'll touch on are the ones that are already in your town plan. And then we can talk about other strategies that you might have seen if you had a chance to look at some of those case studies or other examples that you think would be worth looking into for Roxbury, or again, any other ideas that you have that maybe fall into some of these major categories. And then the last question will be, what other information does the committee want to have prior to the next meeting, ideally, in order to have a informed conversation about any specific strategy. So I think what I'll do, if it's okay with you guys, is just keep this document up, and we can edit it together. So I guess the first question is, again, because we want the strategies to flow from the specific goals, that, the housing needs that you all have heard through the survey results and the housing data analysis for the town. Do you all agree that these kind of two buckets are, senior housing needs and options for young adults and young families? Are there any other goals, or are those the ones that you think you'd like to focus on for now?
I guess my only comment about the second one, options for young adults and young families, I think, and I forgot who brought this up before, it was actually a comment made in one of the survey results, or the questions proposed when people registered. It was about the labeling. And like when we said, one of the questions in the survey was for teachers, and they said, well, really, it should be for everyone. And I think we want to attract younger people. Well, the whole state wants to attract younger people to the area. That's a bigger question, but I think it's young adults, young families, and others who value. I don't know that I would want to just limit it. That's how I feel. It's going to be people who are middle-aged and, or a little older who might just want to move to town too. That would be my only comment to that.
Well, I would even say young families and others, and remove the young adults. To me, that's,
Yeah.
Roxbury is community. Again,
Yeah.
others kind of is that catch-all, but
Yeah.
predominantly we want to remember that when the New Yorkers leave, we care about kindergarten being full. Before COVID,
Right.
and when we started the planning, that was a major focus, not closing our kindergarten. Without young families, that's hard. Plus, these are going to be the people who start putting in their roots and, take over the estates years later when the circle of life continues.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think you brought that up before. I think that was part of, I was thinking of you when I was saying that too. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, and again, it's not like we can't revisit this as we move along. All of this is going to be iterative, but I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page as we move forward with thinking about strategies, that we were targeting them to the specific needs that you're hearing. So if it's okay, I'll move on then to the strategies discussion. And all I did was in this section, literally copied and pasted what's in your existing town plan of conservation and development in terms of strategies to meet housing needs. And I just wanted, I guess, to confirm with the committee that we should leave all of these on the table for further discussion, or not.
Well, in terms of that housing trust, number one, I think we should definitely leave that. I'm not sure housing rehabilitation is the best province of the trust, but that could be decided later. But I don't know if it's the appropriate agency or entity to be doing that.
Yeah, probably not. I think that wouldn't necessarily be done by trust.
I would agree.
Yeah, I agree.
So we could take out the housing
Housing
rehabilitation.
rehabilitation.
You mean not do that at all?
No, not under the housing trust.
Oh,
Why
it's
don't-
not, sorry, it's not intended. These are all separate strategies. I don't know if you thought they were all related.
It's a
No, but I
The
mean, if you
housing trust paragraphs,
it reads like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was skipping down here. I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just remove that.
So, okay, I will
Great.
take that out. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yep.
Um,
Can you explain the second one a little more? Because I find
This
the
one?
line, yeah, the guides and resources. I don't,
Yep. So one thing that some towns have done is, and Larry knows all about this, but he couldn't be here tonight. Some towns have applied for small cities CDBG funding that they can then provide to income eligible homeowners who need to do either, sometimes it's accessibility modifications like putting in a ramp or something. Actually, with that program, it's really anything that's needed to keep the homeowner affordably living in their home. It could be a furnace, could be a roof, but it could also be a ramp. So that's one thing. But also, there are a lot of like AARP guides to how to make your home more accessible. There are some programs around like actually going in and doing those accessibility modifications for seniors, again, to help them stay in their homes. So those are all things, we can take this out, or we could just talk about that more and what that might look like for you.
I did talk to Patrick after the last meeting when Larry brought that up, and Roxbury is involved in that program, and there are homeowners who have benefited from monies that have helped them stay in their homes, and that it is income eligible. That's specific, that it needs a little bit of revamping, but I'm sorry, you're reminding me that you do have that. And then it's a revolving loan fund. The homeowner doesn't have to repay it until they transfer title to their property. But when they do, it gets repaid. And then that can go to giving a loan, giving that funding to the next person. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money, but there's still money there, for.
I guess, I think it's great, but does it really fit in the housing plan designed to sort of expand, right? If we're already doing it and it just changes the homes that people are already in, it doesn't. I think it's fine. It's just not, I'm just not clear it goes in the housing plan.
I think that, I was looking at some of the other plans, and it does talk about, in particular, I was looking at Woodbury, and they do talk about accessibility, because one of the ways to keep people in their homes, if they can get in and around them, and if that's an issue, then I think it's okay.
I think it makes
That's
sense to
fine.
me because it
That's
keeps
fine.
it's an affordability issue,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
if by giving people the education or the information that allows them to stay in their home, that addresses, and then we have the auxiliary affordability issue that, what was the percentage? So many people that their housing costs are so high. And probably most people, or there's probably a lot of people that would prefer to stay in their homes.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's okay.
It gives them a different option than saying moving out and finding something different.
All right, again, I don't want to spend too much time, but if any of these things are like, we should definitely take them out, we don't want to talk about that anymore or at all, then we'll take them off the list. But otherwise, I think if people are willing and interested in exploring them, we could go through a process at the end of this if you want, where you've got like a laundry list of possible strategies and then you prioritize them, like which are the ones that are going to make the most impact, which are the ones that we want to do right away. So
Yeah, and this one with the rehabbing could be a subset of another heading, you know what I mean? So these smaller programs, but at least it shows that we have available these options.
all right. And then I guess I'm sort of looking at Jim. I scrolled down so I could see his face, and Kim, on the zoning commission, to let me know whether these smaller lot sizes suggestions that are in the town plan of conservation development, are those still things that we can continue to talk about, or are they things that should come off?
Kim,
I mean, I know
Yeah.
they've been talked about, but I don't know where you are now. So
Okay, let me say, number one, I'm no longer chairman of the commission, but I'm still on the commission. And yes, I will definitely pursue smaller lot sizes for certain zones, zone A, to create somewhat of a village district type thing. We started talking about this probably 3 years ago. Many changes, smaller lots, less road frontage, smaller interior lots, shared driveways, shared anything. You can share a well, possibly, if you go down to 1 acre lots or 2 acre lots. So zoning started a while ago discussing downsizing, and we also brought up on these small lots a limitation of the square footage, no bigger than 2,000 square feet. If you want something bigger than that in zone A, then you buy 2 small lots, put them together. And I do believe the zoning commission is going to continue looking into this. Yes.
okay.
Can I jump in here? Isn't bullet 3 and bullet 4 redundant? I mean, couldn't you just remove bullet 3?
Yeah, it is redundant. I just wanted to take the language specifically right out of your plan and stick it in here.
Right.
And it's in 2 different sections or 3 different sections of the plan. So yeah, if it's okay, I'll just keep it there for right now, but we'll combine it, as we move forward. Because I agree, it is redundant.
I have a question about this specific language for small developments of 8 to 10 homes on a site. I think it sounds more scary to people to hear something like that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I want to ask Jocelyn, in some of the other plans you sent us copies of, many of them say allow 2 family homes or 2 or duplexes on certain lots. But it doesn't say that there's any maximum. So in other words, it doesn't say you could have 4 duplexes on a lot or just 1 duplex on a lot. Could you give us a little more on those? What those towns are authorizing when they say 2-family homes or duplexes on lots?
Versus a small development of 8 to 10 homes on a site.
Well, I
Is
mean,
that
are
what
they
you-
allowing more than, or under that language, are they allowing more than 1 duplex on a lot? Are they allowing 3 attached duplexes or 3 2-family homes on a lot, or just 1?
Well, it depends on how big of a lot you have. But mostly it's just 1.
Okay,
I mean, that's normally what they're talking about is you have a parcel, instead of being only allowed by right to do a single family house, you could be allowed by right or by site plan approval or special permit to do a duplex.
Or a fourplex.
Jim, has any consideration been given to something like that? Allowing a duplex or a 2-family on a single lot?
The zoning commission, during my tenure, has not brought up duplexes since the Smart Growth Committee discussed duplexes a few years back, and it wasn't received well. I agree. I think the zoning commission should look into common interest ownership, duplexes. You know, it's less of a footprint on a lot than 2 individual homes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think people, if I can jump in, I think people, to Charlie's point, that when you see numbers like 8 to 10, you know, that then people start to think, oh my gosh, what is that? Condos? What are we looking at? And I think those numbers, sorry, Jocelyn, if you can, it's redundant. And also people are going to resist that.
Yeah, they are.
Mhm.
Definitely.
And I think it's hard to develop, you know, that type of thing, just with the land and shared resources, water and sewer and stuff like that.
I think.
Well, again,
Go ahead.
going back to lot sizes, I mean, if we can define, so if you said 8 to 10 on a 10-acre parcel,
Mm.
that's one thing. But if you said 8 to 10 and kind of left it open to interpretation, that's where it gets scary.
Right.
Again, if we're talking about a village zone where you could get down to 1-acre lots, and I think we're hinting at the idea of creating a housing trust, maybe on a 10-acre zone with 8 to 10 units on it, with shared resources.
Yeah, but
Well-
you know, I just don't think you're going to get there. I don't think anyone's going to be motivated to develop that on that size parcel.
How
versus-
many acres is Bernhard?
Yeah, but that's a wholly different type of development.
No, I understand. I just for comparison's sake, I'm trying to think of.
Jim, do you
I'm
know?
not-
20.
I'm going to take a shot at it. I believe Bernhard's only on 3-acre lot.
Really?
What?
I mean,
That's
it's
the
not,
parcel of land though, Jim. That's a big parcel of land, right?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
There's no
Thir-
lots. There's no lots,
14 units.
right?
18. I thought it was
18.
18.
18 units. There's no parcels up there. It's
It's a lot.
complex.
It's
Yeah.
a big
One lot.
complex, but
I think it's bigger than that, but I
I
just don't-
think the
Well,
thing,
I hear what you guys are saying. So,
Okay.
I think if it's okay, we'll, you know, again, we'll keep talking about that, keep exploring it. I added, considering duplexes here, and I added in terms of what other information we might want, just confirming how many acres Bernhardt is on now.
Right.
And then I guess, you know, again, this last thing here that's in the plan of conservation development is just, obviously you've made some recent changes to your accessory apartment regulations, which I think are terrific, and just, letting more people know about that option. So,
And
right.
didn't that come out in the survey that people really didn't know about the opportunities?
Yes,
Jim?
it
That
did.
they, even though it's been there, people just don't know it exists.
Yes,
Yeah.
it hasn't been there that long, but still they didn't know. And that's big.
And it's pretty common, again, that in most towns that people don't know what the zoning is.
Well,
And
yeah,
if
I mean,
and if there's a zoning change, they may very well not know about it. So yeah, so again, yeah, letting people know about that opportunity, I think would be good. And I think if there's a way to encourage folks to, not necessarily, use them for short term or for guests, then that really would, add to your year-round housing stock. Okay, so then we're on to other potential strategies that you might want to talk about further at the next meeting. And I just kind of put them again in these categories because I thought it might help people like come up with some thoughts. But in terms of capacity building resources, obviously creating a new Roxbury Housing Trust would fall under that category. We have that already. But are there other things that people saw maybe in other towns' plans or in any of these case studies that they think would kind of, I mean, you can throw out anything in any of these categories. I can put them down. Do you want to just throw it open, and anybody who has other ideas of things that we should put that really fit into any of these categories, I'll write them down.
I like the option of creating 2 to 4 units of an existing home.
So conversion of existing homes.
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that too. And it could even be a barn, couldn't it?
well, that's a good point. It could be another homes or other buildings on the site. Yeah.
Well, you could make apartments or living places in a barn.
Yeah.
I think.
And again, whenever we talk about these and we start putting numbers around it, I think you need to put a bookend on size. So you don't let people's imaginations go wild.
Yeah, 2 to 4.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the barn.
Can I ask a question? This is strictly rentals, correct?
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily. I
right?
wouldn't say
Not
necessarily.
necessarily, no.
So you can sell on an apartment in the barn.
You would
That
have
would
to,
be a condo.
you'd have to create a very small condo or common interest situation. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you
as
would.
soon as you say condo, you're done.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, honestly, you know what? Zoning is really supposed to, and you guys know this, but you guys on the zoning commission, but zoning regulates the use, not the user.
Right.
So it really shouldn't, as long as you meet all the other requirements in terms of, having the, well capacity and the septic capacity and everything else, shouldn't matter whether a renter is living there or an owner is living there.
No, right. Right. We can't.
The problem, but the reality, the problem would be, let's say you create a 4-plex or a duplex and allow that, and you have common interest. We'll say 4-plex, duplex might be easier. And now you have that 4-plex is going to have to share the well and the septic, maybe you have 4 separate septics, I don't know, and the driveway and everything else. So you're going to have some sort of an association to manage that.
Right.
Which is not, it can be done, but that would be the constraint to me.
Housing trust do
It
that.
would be a constraint because it's such a small scale to do all that documentation for 2 to 4 units. But I think the point about zoning's interest is a good one, that we don't have to decide that. I mean, if somebody went to the trouble of making the units, that's one thing. But I think most often it would be rentals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Right.
again, I think we don't have to hash this all out tonight. And also, like, obviously, whatever's in this housing plan, I want you all to be comfortable with it and want to see the next step happen, but it is ultimately up to the zoning commission to work out, lucky you guys, to work out the details. Because as you all know, the devil is in the details, like, when this would be allowed, what the setbacks are, all of the things, the regulation that would surround it. But
what I was interested too in the homes that could be divided into just say 2, and in essence, when you think about what we allow now, we allow an accessory apartment in a home can't be more than 40% of the home. So it's almost 50. And they're going to be sharing the utilities or sharing the well and the parking and all that. So that's just like a duplex in essence. But I'm just making.
and you do allow 2, so you allow 1 in the home, right? And then 1 could be in a barn. So you would, in theory, kind of be sharing with 3 households.
Correct.
Kim, do we have anybody that has that situation? Like some living in like the same structure in an apartment in a home that you know of?
Not off the top of my head. I do.
Yeah.
believe there are.
Yeah, I am one of them.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
They're there. I just don't know who it is. So, yeah.
So we have the main house,
Yep.
there's an in-law attached to the main house, and I'm in the guest house.
There you go.
One thing that when it comes to zoning can make this available to homeowners. We can't make them obviously do anything about it. It's available
Right.
if they want to use that. Not every homeowner in Roxbury wants to share their lot, their property, their home. We're just making the choice available to them.
Yeah. Well, like, again, this is kind of where I go talking about we should put some sizes and bookends around it. So we have a house, a guest house, and an in-law, but, we're 12, 13 acres. So it doesn't look like anything.
Yep.
So if you wanted to keep the rural character of Roxbury with these nice opened areas where you can go take a walk in the woods and never leave your property, but you wanted to have more capacity, this is a great way to do it. This would feel very different if this was a 1 acre lot.
Yep.
It would feel very different. It would feel very different if it was a 4 acre lot.
Well, the regulation that we just adopted allowing up to 1,800 square feet of an accessory structure, you can build a whole nother house on your lot up to 1,800 square feet and rent it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody can do that, but the smallest lot size is 3 acres. So there's plenty of room. And zone C is 4 acres. So there's definitely plenty of room to put 2 houses. We already allow it. It's a rental, can't sell it, but you can build up to 1,800 square feet, even if you live in a smaller one on your lot. The lots are 3 acres and up.
So the only difference of allowing, if I can jump in, if we allow a duplex thing, you could take that 1,800 square foot house, if duplexes are allowed, and make that a duplex rental.
If duplexes were allowed, but they're not.
Right.
But say that was a plan.
Correct.
And it feels like that's where you have to, if we're thinking about affordability, you have to think about the smaller kinds of things, right? Not, huge numbers of acres in guest houses, which aren't going to really, I think, address the affordability issue necessarily.
Yeah, but having a cottage or a guest house, like for my situation, it's a 1 bedroom over a 2-car garage. So anybody could do that. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not a McMansion by any means, but it's very
Right.
comfortable.
There's a difference between guest house and accessory apartment.
Well, we took guest houses out of the zoning regs. So a guest house in our regulations said no kitchen, no kitchen facilities. So
Yeah,
we
so
were
I
like,
mean, it's accessory apartment, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
But
It is what it is.
But to Judy's point, and I'm not slamming on what the rules are right now, if you're allowed to have a 1,800 square foot structure and be able to rent it out,
Yes.
the incentive is going to be to go big because you're going to get that money versus saying, well, let's do a 900 square foot thing. No, you're going to want the bigger structure. Your cost of building that to expand from 900 to 1,800, that marginal cost is less. Am I making sense? Then
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you both are saying is true. I mean, these are not deemed affordable,
Right.
my neighbor down the street who's, getting a whole lot of money for the rentals, but it's still an option for people who don't or can't buy.
Well, it's definitely,
And
definitely
I'm
an
not blaming,
option.
I'm not saying like, well, that's bad, but within the
Yeah,
affordable.
exactly. I'm just saying that there needs to be some intentionality here, right? In terms of thinking forward.
Right.
Because these things are great and, they probably allow some families to stay together and, supporting multi-generational, and it's all great, but it's not necessarily expanding it's not reaching that goal of either downsizing or getting more young families in terms of in an intentional way. I think there's just, for me, the plan has to have some intentionality around it.
Yep.
Well, I don't know, because I'm that young family. You might have heard my 1-week-old in the background here.
And congratulations.
I think.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think he's the youngest Roxbury resident currently. But yeah, we couldn't be in Roxbury right now unless there was this rental for us. So I'm that demographic right there. And number two, the hard part is, where's our next step? Our next step from here is 700,000. Okay, that's not a starter home. Okay, but that's starting to be, and again, there's a $400,000 house for sale in Roxbury right now. You just have to put about $200,000 in 6 months of work to get it to be a livable situation. So again, I think that we can do it with some intentionality, and again, rather than we can also put the context before the concept and say, why don't we look at the idea of not housing trust, but Charlie, maybe you can help me out with this. There is like a lending pool, right? That some communities have, that you can go to the community and say, hey, I want to help you with your housing issue. I want to put in a smaller house that fits a certain parameter. Again, something that's considered a rental and an approachable rental. And you're going to get favorable terms for that loan, right? So if somebody wants to go out and build an 1,800 square foot $1 million whatever, okay, to the nines with gold toilets and whatever, they're not going to get a special loan with favorable terms. But if somebody just wants to build a structure, they want to follow a set of rules, and they're willing to follow those rules to support affordable housing on their existing property within the zoning regulations. I mean, I think that that's something that we might be able to build a story around and get some support for.
Okay,
Except-
so let's, I do want to just say real quick, it's already 7:47. So I want us to like, just I really want us to talk about strategies we want to talk about for next time. And again, get into any details about any one specific thing, but I did hear you talking about funding strategies. And I think we should talk about that in terms of what funding strategies you all might be interested in exploring.
Well, Jocelyn, I was thinking
Yeah.
about that, and and I think I would rely on your information of what's available, like what can we
Yeah.
look at?
So
What you have these listed. I'm pointing to it, down
yeah,
here. What's available through the state, what's available through, what that people can apply for, and
well, so yeah, so I did have these listed to kind of spur some ideas, but the small cities one that's listed here, that's what we just talked about. That's, Roxbury already has some of that, and that program could potentially be expanded, or again, it's a revolving loan fund. In terms of a land acquisition fund, so the town of Goshen, basically, and we can talk about this in more detail if you want, but just to give you enough information that you can say whether you want to hear more about it or not. The town of Goshen has a land acquisition fund that takes a portion of the conveyance fees that anybody has.
we have
pay.
that. We already have that here in
And-
Roxbury.
Can you use it for housing as well as?
No.
So in Goshen, you can use it for either, to provide to your land trust to permanently preserve additional land, or you could use it for affordable housing.
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's all kind of a municipal type.
To retain open space.
Right.
Yeah,
But
but
it-
it's
But it's not
town-
given, but it's not given to the land. It's not then
Yeah,
bought
so
through that
No, no, no,
conveyance
no.
or given to the land trust. No.
this is
No, no.
this is an ordinance that the town of Goshen passed to allow them to do that.
Oh, no, in Roxbury
We have
has
it.
it.
Yes. Yep.
It's
We-
just not designated for affordable housing.
No.
It's
No.
open space.
Open space.
So the question is whether you would want to consider any portion of that potentially going to a use like housing.
Right. That'd be, yeah.
That'll go. So for example, Munson Meadow was purchased for that through the land acquisition fund.
Correct.
And, when you start talking about, which is in zone A, right, Jim?
Correct.
Yeah. When you start bringing up Munson Meadow, I don't mean to be a downer here, but to build anything on it, it's kind of a non-starter.
Well, so here,
But
so
what about
the idea, like in Goshen, is that, so they have a Goshen Housing Trust. So the idea would be the Goshen Housing Trust could find a parcel that's available for sale and go to the town and say, you have a land acquisition fund that you may use for affordable housing. Would you use it to help us purchase this site?
Correct. Roxbury's got a lot of changes to make because our land acquisition fund is a ordinance that allows us to spend up to, I believe, $100,000 or use $100,000 a year can be put into that. And it's very specific just for open space. We'd have to change the whole scheme and ordinance to allow it that purchase, because when tax dollars are spent on land acquisition, and everybody knows it's to just maintain open space, not for housing, then we
Right.
have to.
That would almost have to be like a town meeting and a change of the whole
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah,
Huge,
definitely. It would,
yeah.
it would require a town meeting and an ordinance change.
Yes.
So the question is whether you want to keep talking about that possibility or not.
It's a lot to bite off at this point.
It is.
Okay, that's fine. So let me talk about some of the other things. Down payment assistance. So the town of Washington
Mhm.
has a fund that they put money into every year to help income eligible residents with down payment assistance to buy their first home.
That might be more acceptable in
Right.
Roxbury.
Yeah.
There again, it's got to come before the town.
Oh yeah, I mean, all of this
And
stuff does.
Obviously, yeah, I know. And the town might accept that more. I mean, that does work.
And yeah, and Jocelyn, I'd have to see, I guess we could put it down there and then see how it's managed.
Yep.
I would say that the ARPA funding, that's already been, those monies have already been decided, and it wouldn't fit here, I don't believe anymore.
For all of it that you're getting?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's already been allocated.
okay.
What about Habitats of Humanity? Is there anybody partnering with builders where people in the community, they can donate land and then the community can come together and build for people that need homes?
Wouldn't that fall under the housing trust?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
There's an article in Voices about Washington. They got some land and Habitat for Humanity is going to build wants to build 1 to 3 houses in the next year in Washington.
yeah, Habitat, Housatonic, I know it's, I think it's Housatonic Habitat, is working in Washington. And I think they actually have a parcel where they can build 6 or 8 houses. And they have a housing trust too. So there's kind of room for everyone. I think it's a good suggestion that, it's potentially if there was something that became available and there was no Roxbury Housing Trust, or the Roxbury Housing Trust wasn't interested, that you could potentially have a Habitat chapter who, you might be able to get to do something.
Well, the thing about the Habitat is the housing trust, it would give them, if a housing trust is created, it takes the onus of executing the housing off their plate, right? They're kind of not outsourcing, but joining a housing trust, somebody might be like, oh my gosh, I got to think about all the steps of making this housing happen.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just keep going. So down payment assistance. Oh, the housing trust fund. So the town of Washington and the town of Salisbury have a housing trust fund. Again, something that was passed by town meeting, but that was, the town sets aside I think it's between 10,000 and I think some years it's been up to 100,000 that's gone into this housing trust fund to be used for the purposes of creating housing options. And that is typically that's managed by a town housing commission. So both Salisbury and Washington have a town housing commission. And one of their jobs is to recommend uses of that housing trust fund. And they have kind of levels. So like if it's $5,000 or less, it's up to the commission. If it's over 5,000, it's up to the Board of Selectmen. And if it's over 20,000 or something, it's up to the town meeting.
Don't we need to get the trust established and get it making relationships with people in town and actually doing something? And because if we get a trust and it does something, then there's going to be incentive to talk about the town maybe giving money, this and that. But until we have something that's really viable, there's not much. I don't see the point in going there.
I hear you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What's that? Julie, I couldn't hear you.
I said that's fair. I mean, Charlie's right.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
I do too.
There's a
Housing trust.
sequencing, yeah, and we have to sequence it, those steps.
Okay.
Julie, could I ask, one of the things that I liked in Warren's plan, and it's not the only place it showed up. Julie, what do you think about this? Work with the Warren Land Trust to see if future donors could be asked to consider a portion of the preserved property being provided to the Warren Housing Trust to be used for housing. So if it's land that has, is not a large parcel, or it's not particularly worthy from the land trust perspective for
That,
taking it on.
Charlie, I read that too, and I thought that was interesting. And, to pursue or to think about, I think, because the way it was written with Warren was land that did not have conservation value.
Mhm.
And that's a tough, how to take, I was trying to wrap my head around, how do you take a parcel, from a perspective, sometimes we say, well, it's all should be conserved, right? But I thought it was an interesting idea.
do you want an example from Washington?
Sure.
Yes.
So in Washington, there's somebody who's on the Steep Rock Association and also the Washington Community Housing Trust. And somebody came to Steep Rock with, I think it was like a 2 or 3 acre parcel that wasn't connected to any of their other properties. So they asked them, would you be willing to donate this instead of for conservation, for housing? Because it was in a neighborhood. They said, yes, we'd be happy to donate it for that. So again, it's obviously up to the donor, the landowner, but it's just kind of throwing out there.
But to Charlie's point, I believe there may be landowners who would be open to that.
Good.
That
Well,
concept.
I
Not
think
a 2 acre parcel, but or a landowner, and we've had this with the land trust where a landowner has said to your neighborhood analogy, oh, I have this 5 acre parcel. Are you interested in it? And the land trust will say, well, it's not connected to anything. It's an island. And no, we're not, So that might be an option. And there may be landowners who are willing to donate, say, a 50 acre parcel, hypothetically, but may have an interest, maybe some of that has road frontage and could work for housing. And I think that can be worked out. I think it's possible.
Well, that would be great. I mean, cooperation between that new housing trust and the land trust would be really wonderful.
So I have a question here. So if you, say if somebody had a 10 acre parcel and they decided that they would like to donate 5 of those acres to have some buildings on it for affordable housing or downsizing or whatever, and they live in an area where there's not a huge amount of houses, but they live on a road where there are other houses. Would that landowner have to get the approval of the other homeowners on that road to do that?
No, I think what's, and it's hard because a lot of these things would have to kind of, I'm not sure what would come first, second, third, probably the housing trust. And then it's got zoning has to get involved. And where, what does affordable housing look like? What are we as a town going to agree to have? Is it going to be, a duplex or, shared walls, and how many of those? I think those decisions have to be made too, right? Jim, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because you can't just say on this on, that 5 acres that we're going to build what, right now we don't,
Yeah, because you couldn't go to the neighbors with
No.
a concept if you don't know what it is. That would scare them. Like, I don't know what's coming in.
and it wouldn't be allowed, and whatever at this point. So,
Okay, so we talked about some capacity building strategies, some funding strategy ideas, some zoning strategy ideas. And then we can keep thinking about, again, raising awareness of existing, programs or policies. Again, like going back to the accessory apartments, letting more people know about them. Was there anything else in those examples that anybody saw that you wanted to?
Can I ask a question about the
Yeah.
mapping? Where
Yeah.
would that come from?
Well, this is just what that's on to our next question,
Oh, sorry.
which is what other information does the committee need? So this was just me thinking about, what are some other things that you might potentially want to do?
I have just something, I don't know where it goes on this list, but somebody at some point asked about, could we put more units at Bernhard? And that was a good question. And I wouldn't know the answer.
Isn't that all restricted though, Kim? The
Yes.
whole Bernhard thing is all because of the grants that were taken for that. It's all kind of HUD and
It would be more HUD units, yeah.
yeah.
But I don't know whether new buildings on that property would have the same restrictions and I don't know how it's written. And
Kim, you can tell us right tonight, I think you're pretty good with that computer. How many acres is Bernhard Meadows?
Go on the mapping.
Yeah, well, and again, we can
Right,
talk about that more. It's a good question. Anything
Can I-
else? Yep, go
Can I
ahead.
ask one question?
Yeah.
Jocelyn, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. The term downsizing keeps getting thrown out at me, downsizing. What exactly is downsizing? Obviously, it means from big to small. Is there more to it than just getting into a smaller home from a bigger home? Or does downsizing mean more that you have people doing things for you?
Well, I think about it, that's what, with these 3 bullet points. So, going from maybe a 3-4 plus bedroom house to a 1 or 2 bedroom, having it be lower maintenance potentially. So maybe, again, maybe it's in a place where you,
Because people want downsizing. Do they want things done for them?
I don't,
Like-
Jim, in my view, sorry to jump in. I
Yeah.
see
That's all
it
right.
as physical space,
Just a size.
size, somebody needs to do their maintenance for them.
Maybe one level, maybe a ranch instead of a two-story house.
Yeah,
But
Right.
it doesn't mean they have to have people coming in
Services.
to take care of them.
Caregivers.
Caregivers
Services, yeah.
available
Right.
at the house, no.
Okay, all right.
yeah, I look at it as space.
Just bigger to smaller. Okay.
Yeah.
a very popular one that's as soon as they come on the market, they're gone, is Beebrook in Washington.
Yeah,
You don't even know it's there. It's off of the 47, and it's
Aren't they condominiums?
they are, and
Oh my,
very nicely. I know exactly.
chasing our tail.
Yep, but I'm just that's where people go from larger to smaller, and they're still
Exactly, yeah.
high. They're still high end, but still not as much to take care of, and they take care of it themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
so I'm going to go back to the person who has 10 acres and they want to donate 5. Or maybe they don't want to donate 5, but if they took 5 of that 10-acre parcel and built a smaller house, could they then live in that smaller house that's on their own property and then either sell or rent their bigger house.
Yes,
They can do that.
As long as it fits, you know, it's
the
follow-
smaller house can be no larger than 1,800 square feet. You can move into the smaller one, rent your 3,000 square foot home to anybody you'd like. You're both on the same lot, and it doesn't have to be a 10-acre lot. It can be a 4-acre lot.
But you couldn't sell the big house.
No, rent
Yeah.
it.
You only could rent it. Because
That's
Sue was
what's-
asking if you could sell it
No, Sue
No.
asked if you could rent it.
Yeah, or sell it.
or sell.
I might have said,
No,
but is there, do you think that there's a market for that? Like, would people want to rent?
we don't know. Zoning made it available. We can't predict who's going to use the option. But zoning made the option available to do so.
I mean, you could sell it if it fits current zoning regulations.
Sure, 10-acre lot, if you had the road frontage, certainly you can split a lot off. It's subdividing.
Right.
Okay,
All right, so in the interest of time, I'm gonna sort of move us along to the last question. And, you know, if between now and the next meeting, again, there's something else that pops up for you in terms of strategies, obviously just send me an email. But I guess the question is, is there anything that popped up to you other than potentially looking into Bernhardt a little bit more? You know, we could case studies, mapping, anything that you think that we would want to do in order to look into any of these.
Well, one of the things a question that came up at the town information session, somebody asked a question about land. I forgot it was there or in another meeting, but somebody asked a question about available land. And the problem is that if we start talking about different parcels of property, the owners don't even know that we've considered their property.
Yeah.
And I think that's really uncomfortable. And I don't know that that's appropriate for us to be just listing land that we'd like, you know?
Yeah, usually in these kind of forums, we really only talk about land if it's town-owned land.
Yeah.
You know, we sometimes, again, like this exercise I was just thinking about because I was reading your zoning regulations that deal with affordable housing and elderly housing, and they require 6-acre parcel. And I was just thinking, well, how many 6-acre parcels do you have with good soils? I don't know if that's a worthwhile exercise or not, but we could do it.
I think that, well, that could be an eventual thing, maybe.
Yeah,
But I think just the awareness of, you know, kind of going back to Charlie's point about would there be donors interested who are looking at conservation, but there's parcels that might be a blend. There could be, with more awareness to a need for affordable housing or something, potential donors might be interested in that concept.
Yeah. Instead of donating to the land trusts, you know, they might donate to the dead.
And it may be a parcel like an island that the land trust has no interest in.
Right.
Or it may be a portion of a parcel that could be land trust, but also there could be a portion that would work
Yep.
for housing. But I
Agreed.
think what comes out of that, I think we talked about cart before the horse. There needs to be the zoning and
Yeah.
infrastructure to allow that.
Yeah.
The rules.
You can combine planning and zoning in this circumstance.
Yeah,
Planning
not to
and
pick
zoning.
on just zoning, but yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's things that could, you know, kind of run in tandem, you know, it's the housing trust, it's the zoning regulations, you know, those are things that doesn't have to be one and then the other. I think, you know, by the time all this stuff takes so much time, takes so long to have happen and come to fruition, then if they're working in tandem, then they actually can support one another because there's an interest, and then you have more public awareness and then public support, hopefully.
Like Jocelyn says, this is just a plan. And
Right.
all we have to do is come up with a plan, then figure out how to implement that plan at a later date.
Yep.
So if you guys need motivation, this is why we're all volunteering
Aw.
Yay! Thank you so much.
to figure this stuff out. So we got about 20 years. We got about 20 years until he buys his first property in Roxbury. So that'd be the end zone.
That's great. What's his
Yeah.
name?
It's Alfonso Antonio.
Oh,
Aw.
We decided to give him an Irish name to confuse everybody.
Congratulations.
Way to go.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
All right, he has to go to bed. Good night.
okay. Bye.
All right.
I missed that whole thing.
That's awesome.
All right. So anything else in terms of other, information you would like brought to the next meeting?
Should we find out how many parcels the town owns? Would that be of
No.
any reason? No?
No,
I don't think I think that's a moot point because
Okay.
it's for open space. It's, I mean, I think information, sure, I can find that out,
yeah, but you
No.
can't.
but I don't think it's
That's
gonna,
going to be, sorry, Sue, that's going to be a non-starter though, to take, like if you were considering like, we'll take town owned and convert them. I think that's been floated before.
what people did when they agreed at the town meeting to spend money on property, it was to preserve it as open space. So, and it was-
That's true. That's true of every town-owned parcel.
Oh, is it?
In
Yeah.
Roxbury it is, yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
It is. This is Russ. Sorry, I'm so
Yes.
dark. Sitting in my jammies.
I don't think,
Russ,
Well,
you're
you
like
know-
just a red head.
I know. When we did this way back, it was really to preserve land. And
yeah,
I think to change that would not go well with a lot of people.
No, yeah, you should not change something.
But the
Yeah.
state statute does allow you to do that.
yeah,
It does allow it. Whether what we voted for doesn't matter. The state statute says we can use it for affordable housing, but it needs to go to a town meeting. And I think that's a waste of time.
Yeah, not the first thing to do.
no,
Hmm.
no. I think I'm
Um,
better off with, getting someone to possibly donate in best interest of that program.
Right,
you
and,
wanna-
and have an active housing authority, which Barbara started, to work like a land trust and try to generate money to do good things for this town. Right?
Well, I think we don't have a housing trust, which is separate. This is the steering committee for the plan, but it's not a, it's
But
not,
we started a housing authority.
Well, that could be one of the recommendations is to revive that. I think that's was one of the
I'm
strategies.
pretty sure we did it.
Well,
Wow,
we
wow.
asked if anybody wanted to step up and jump in, and Barbara, I recall, nobody came forward. We
But
Housing
tried.
is-
Bernhardt Meadows has a board that manages it, right?
yes.
Yeah, it's a little different, yep.
Is it a town appointed board?
No,
No.
no,
So that is an organization that could, in theory, do something like, if it was possible, take on an expansion of Bernhardt.
Right.
if you could get them to do that, I think you got to go to a whole new different group.
I would
Right.
agree. I would agree because Bernhardt's probably, the people that are involved are probably just dealing with the
Bernhard, yes.
Bernhardt.
Absolutely. It needs to be a different group. There's state statutes that, I thought we set it up. I didn't get involved because I'm
we
involved in
tried.
too many things. But we did, huh, Jim?
We tried, yeah.
We did, yeah.
Barbara
I
put it out
remember.
there. Yep,
And nobody stepped up.
No,
Yes, it's not in existence, so that's why.
All right, I'm sorry. I
No.
thought we
Well,
had that done.
We'll keep trying.
Yep.
That is the way to go.
Yeah,
That
Yep.
is the way to go.
there's a time and place for almost everything.
Yeah,
I think it's bedtime.
Yeah, there's definitely that. Okay, so we definitely have enough to go on here for the next meeting. And I'm gonna try to put this together in a more organized way for the next meeting, and get it back out to you all so that we can really, again, talk about which of these you want to keep, if there are new ones you want to add. And I think at the next meeting, we'll also talk about outline for what your housing plan might look like, so you can give feedback on that too.
Okay, that'd be great. Can we have a copy of this way before
Yeah.
this one? Because it just helps me to see it, and then I might want to add some things to it.
Yeah, of course, I can send it to you all right away.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All
Thanks.
right, thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you so much. Thank you,
night,
everyone.
guys.
Nighty night.
Good night.